HVAC 360 is brought to you today by ASHRAE, who's celebrating their 125th anniversary this year. Their mission? To serve humanity by advancing the arts and sciences of heating, ventilating, air conditioning, refrigeration, and their allied fields. And whose vision is a healthy and sustainable built environment for all. Get involved with ASHRAE today. Visit ashrae.org for more information. Welcome back. Matt Nelson here, your host for HVAC 360, helping you be the best and the brightest in the field of HVAC. I do that by sharing information, passing along lessons learned from the field, and talking with industry experts. I usually encourage you at this point in time to go over to HVAC360.com and join the newsletter. But you know what? Today I would like you to go over to YouTube, search up HVAC360, click on the channel, and subscribe. Right now I'm trying to get the first 100 subscribers, and I want you to be part of that. All right, so what's up for this week? This week we are going to be giving... I am going to be giving a recap of ASHRAE's winter meeting. I'm going to do other episodes that have some things that I learned in the educational sessions, but this week I just wanted to focus on a session that I had with ASHRAE President Daryl Boyce and some of the pearls of wisdom that I gleaned from the keynote this year. The keynote speaker was Ed Oculi. All right, so I'm going to start off talking about the little press conference we had with Daryl Boyce, who's the current ASHRAE president. We're going to actually try to get Daryl on in a future interview, but I just wanted to kind of cover a couple of topics that he mentioned. His focus is achieving operational excellence, and he kind of mentioned that even the most competent O&M staff, if they don't keep up with change, lose their edge over time and start to have issues. I can say that about O&M staff. I can say the same thing about just about anybody. This is a really fast-paced kind of job. It's not so aggressive like computer programming, but yet there are constantly things that are coming out. Speaking of things that are going to be on the shelves, on the bookshelves, he did mention that a guide for operational excellence is coming out later this year. So if you want to stay tuned to the ASHRAE bookstore and see if you can't grab a copy, if that's something that you're interested in. As far as big news for ASHRAE, he talked about how in January, they started renovating the new ASHRAE headquarters. They did this in conjunction. They used the Advanced Energy Design Guideline for net zero buildings for office buildings. And they're really trying to, they went through the whole process. I actually sat down in a session, and maybe I'll go through my notes and kind of put that out there to you in one of these podcasts in a little while. But really, the idea was for the new headquarters. It was taking a 1970s building and transforming it into a near net zero. Little spoiler alert, they really didn't get to near net zero, but they're pretty darn close. So they've done some really amazing things with the new headquarters. I'm excited to see if I can't get a chance the next time the show is in Atlanta to go visit the headquarters there. A couple other things that he set up or he mentioned. Obviously, the BEQ, the Building Energy Quotient, that is a program that is really starting to kind of heat up. And it's really different from what you'd see the Energy Star or some of the other building rating systems, because it has a couple different components. It has the as designed component, it has the in operation component, and that it also throws in there the energy improvement measures, the EEMs. And that is something that's kind of unique to the Building Energy Quotient. Now, the BEQ actually has its own portal. Anybody can go there and input their information. They can't, unless you're a BEAP professional or a BEMP or a professional engineer, member of ASHRAE, you can't, or a professional engineer, you can actually submit and get an actual certificate stating that you've achieved this rating, but you can actually, anybody can go there and kind of, input their information and get a score. What's neat about the rating system is it gives you a scale as far as, where you're at. I guess anybody familiar with the Energy Star Portfolio Manager, obviously the lower the number, the better. This is also the case with the BEQ. It sets a baseline of 100, and if you get towards 0, the closer to 0 you are, the better. 200 is actually kind of the worst case scenario, and it aggregates a bunch of data from a bunch of different data sets, not only the CBEX, but it also has information that it's actually that it has in its system to take a look at that for various different building types. So that's kind of cool. I will link that in the show notes for those who are interested. Another thing that he mentioned was that a lot of the, when we talk about operational excellence, ASHRAE has kind of promoted recently over the last year or so the formation of a lot of memorandums of understanding. Now, if you look at them on the surface, it's more like, two organizations get together and write a memorandum of understanding, an MOU, and it could be just there's a relationship there. In the best case scenario, it's using that memorandum of understanding, and actually, instead of having a 1 + 1 = 2 scenario, you actually make you improve both societies by using the memorandum of understanding. And in that case, you get 1 + 1 = 3. So 3 of these MOUs specifically are with APPA. Really is the leadership in educational facilities. IFMA, the International Facility Manager Association, and BOMI, Building Operations and Maintenance International. Actually, most of those just go by IFMA, BOMI, APA. I know especially APA, I have no idea what that means or that stands for, but it relates to educational facilities and the people who run them. So those MOUs are actually being used, and they're working together, working with us, not only to achieve operational excellence, but integrating the building EQ program that ASHRAE has developed. And really, I think Daryl's biggest takeaway so far this year is that, in talking about operational excellence, operational excellence is a global issue. It's not just a North American issue. It's not just a U.S. issue. It's an issue all over the place. All right, now on to the pearls of wisdom from Ed Oculi, or at least the way I heard it. Now, Ed was the keynote speaker at the meeting of the members. This is kind of one of the first kickoff meetings that you have during the ASHRAE conference, and this is the plenary session. So typically that session, you have a lot of awards being given out, and then they kind of wrap it up with the keynote. He has one of those names you just can't pronounce just by looking at it. And I'm not even going to try. You're going to have to go to the show notes, and there's going to be a lot of links because, even though he was a lawyer by trade, he worked his way up through the ranks as a ref. This is really kind of, his bread and butter, his meat and potatoes. If you've ever watched football American football over the past couple of decades, actually, I'm sure you have seen him as the head ref. Again, I'll link some videos, and I'm sure you've seen him. Really, his nickname would be Guns, often referred to as the strongest ref in the world, but. He's still really had a physique of Bill Gates when compared to some of those NFL players like Warren Sapp or some of the other linemen that are around. So his focus really is that you could be an average Joe and still be a superstar. The intent there, being an average Joe, he said, really the key is not to settle for being average. He's like, most people are generally average or below average if you're really being honest with yourself. And most are not talented. Not everybody's talented. But, there's a couple of keys that really differentiate people who lack the motivation or there are a couple of keys that really help people accelerate and become the best at what they want to do. The first key is just having hustle and drive. Really this beats talent day in, day out. He had kind of mentioned a number of quarterbacks who might not have the strongest arm, but they work the hardest. You really don't, you talk about the intelligence and the presence in the game and just having that, if you get knocked down, you get back up again and you just keep on going after it. This was followed closely by key number 2, which is be prepared. Obviously, once you have that internal drive, that fire, that's inside of you, then you have to put in the work. You have to do the reps. You have to have the studying. You have to be ready when life gives you breaks. It doesn't always have to be fair, but life tends to give you a break every once in a while. And the difference is if you are ready, if you are prepared, if you have that drive when life decides to give you that break, then you can hit it and you can achieve some greatness. But if you don't put in the work and life gives you that chance, it might just pass you by. Key number 3, and this kind of works into his whole mentality with the people that he worked with, the other refs, is that you really have to have teamwork. And the important thing there is his position as a ref. He wanted to give recognition to people, and sometimes that's not, it's not always an increase in your paycheck. That's something that is, hard to sustain. It doesn't really mean that much in the long term, but there are some acknowledgments for some great work that you can do that mean much more than a paycheck. Obviously, money is great and everything, but there's the little things that sometimes mean so much more. And he was relaying a story about how they used to have little dollar games during an event. And it's just kind of some things that who would make the best call, or who would be the first to point out a certain situation or what have you. But at the end of the week, they'd sit down, they'd give out dollars to whoever won those dollar bets, and it was inconsequential. It was just something that is just kind of a recognition. And he went back years later and visited one of the people that had worked on one of his crew, and he had seen in his trophy case a stack of dollar bills. And that was one thing that particular ref that he had worked with had kept and had put a higher value on than a lot of other things. So when you're working in a team, the point is to make sure that you give recognition. The other thing is that when you're a leader, be prepared to take the hit. When you lead people, make sure that you are the one, and make sure that you understand that you are the one that is responsible. If anybody makes a mistake, it's your fault. You haven't educated them well enough. Take the heat for your staff. And if there's something that goes right, give your staff that recognition. Don't heap that on yourself. So in doing so, you build this relationship where everybody around you wants to help. They understand who you are. They understand where they stand, and they want to do better. If you take the hit for them, they want to make that up to you. If you give them praise and accolades, if you pass those along, that means more to them than it would be to you. You are driving a team. You are making sure that everybody gets the recognition they deserve and basically your protection. All right, key number 4, mistakes. Mistakes will happen. They are guaranteed to happen. It's how you react to them that really makes the difference between the average Joe and the person who's just accelerating and who's a superstar. If you make a mistake, just get back up. Sometimes you just need to give yourself a kick in the butt to get going. You need to have perspective. Something that seems big in the moment, when you look back at it, moments later, a year later, it just doesn't seem that big. Don't get stuck in your own head and get in that cycle, that downward cycle. Just pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and get back to work. Mistakes happen. Forgive yourself and go on. All right, well, that's it for this week. Thanks so much for listening. I appreciate each and every one of you. If you know somebody who's looking to step up their HVAC game, consider sharing this episode or really one of your other favorites with them. This is by far the best thing you can do to spread the word about this podcast. If you want extra credit, there's a couple extra things you can do, but the only one I'm going to mention, again, is go over to youtube.com and search up HVAC 360, click on the link, and subscribe. That's going to help me out. That's going to be my number one goal, really, going forward for the next couple of weeks, trying to reach that 100 mark. All right, another episode of HVAC 360 is in the books. I'm Matt Nelson, helping you be the best and the brightest in the field of HVAC. And as always, know what you build and share what you know.